Introduction to 1 Timothy. My name is Pastor Peter Hawkes, and this video is to explain a little bit of the purpose of 1 Timothy and a little bit of the content. Timothy was a young leader who Paul had discipled. He had a Greek father and a Jewish mother. He'd accompanied Paul on one of his missionary journeys and was like a son to him. He said, "You're my true son in the faith." He was probably either in his late teens, early 20s, or in his early 30s. So he was quite young and quite timid, quite inexperienced. So a lot of what Paul says to Timothy is to give him confidence to be a leader, even if he's among people that are older than him and dealing with very tricky situations. So it was to help Paul Timothy grow as a leader. And for any Christian worker, the pastoral epistles are here to help you to learn the principles of serving Christ. Just what exactly is the pattern in the New Testament? The book itself of 1 Timothy. Timothy's task was to preach doctrine, teaching, truth to the church, because false teachers had come in with teaching that genealogies were important. There was a lot of speculation and intellectual discussion, which was very dry and unhelpful. And Paul says that the most important thing is to love from a pure heart, with a good conscience and sincere faith. And then Paul gives his testimony of how he became a Christian. He then teaches about prayer. He gives instruction about how women should conduct themselves in church, dressing modestly, and being in submission to elders. That's a very controversial topic these days. But he explains that in the context, women were interrupting meetings, shouting, asking questions, and he's saying, well, you can't have that disorder. Does he mean that women were to be quiet? Many translations say that I don't suffer a woman to teach or to be an authority over a man, but to be quiet. The actual context is that they're to be submissive, to be humble and meek, and not interrupt meetings. It doesn't mean that they can't teach in simple ways or in other ways. But in Corinthians, for example, it says that women can prophesy, they can testify, they can bring a tongue. But what Paul is really getting at here is that women can be in leadership, but they shouldn't be bossy. They shouldn't be domineering. They shouldn't take control of a church and try and be manipulative. So for each person reading these epistles, they have to come to some conclusion how it really works out in real life. But in the next section, just something which does confirm this. He doesn't have a down on women. He wants them to take leadership. Many of them were tremendous evangelists and great visitors, and they taught women. No, but he gives the qualifications of elders as being male, married to one woman. It doesn't mean that single men are excluded, but on the whole, the main point he's making is that it's men that should have the eldership within a church. He doesn't see a church as just having one pastor, but a group eldership. And women can help, women can preach, women can teach, but it's basically men that have to be in authority within a church situation. They must have good character, be godly, and they must be able to teach. And there's a lot more in the epistle about that. He gives the qualities of a deacon, and they're all similar, but in this case, Paul allows men and women. We have Phoebe, who is a deacon, and they serve the church in practical ways. Paul warns, like I mentioned, about the threat of apostasy, people falling away from Christ, bringing in false doctrines, and the fact that false teachers will infiltrate the church and bring in teaching which isn't godly. He especially urges Timothy to be a man of God by being holy, honest, and pure. When Paul teaches next Paul teaches how we should honour bosses, misrespect widows, and those that in real need support them. But we must support financially elders within the church. That's a normal pattern. We know that Paul worked at times, but Paul is saying to Timothy that if it's possible, the church should support an elder financially so that he might be have more time to pray and to serve the church. If an elder sins, then we're to rebuke that elder. He isn't a god. There must be an accountability about eldership. And there's a useful section right towards the end of 1 Timothy about the love of money and greed, that is not a godly attitude, and that we're to be content with what we have. Timothy is told to fight hard for the body of truth, fight the good fight, and commanded to live an exemplary life. So that gives just a little introduction to the epistle of 1 Timothy. Thank you.